Welcome to the final edition of Writer's Toolkit. This episode is all about the writers' groups and partnerships that you should be looking for.
Hey guys, it's Carol. Look, we have better lighting. Oh, I finally figured that out. So this is going to be the last video of the Writer's Toolkit series. Congratulations guys, we made it! We figured it out. And this episode we're going to be talking about writers' groups and writing partnerships. Now, just to give a little bit of background on why I feel like I have license to talk about this, I started writing back in 2003 because back then I was friends with a girl who was writing a science fiction story, and I thought that since myself and all of our friends were being really supportive for her, that they would do the same thing for me. That turned out to not be the case. It wasn't until I met the first of the three lovely ladies that I'll be talking about that I actually started getting the critiques and the help that I needed. Now, all of the people that I'm going to be talking about are female. That is not through any willful decision of my own. It is just my story is about a runaway princess. Not a whole lot of guys want to read about that. So, the first lovely lady, she has an account on DeviantArt that I came across, or she may have come across my account back then, back when it had the second draft of the Regal by Blood series going up. Now, I'm not really active on that site anymore, and neither is she. We do still talk, but we've kind of grown apart. And this person that I'm talking about is Eleonora on DeviantArt. I'll be sure to include a link to her account in the description. It's mostly art. I don't think she actually has any of her writing up on it. But if you really feel like investigating, there is some early fan art of the Regal by Blood series. Eleonora and I started talking to each other in 2008, and we started with just her commenting on my chapters and sort of chatting with me about that and offering suggestions, and we ended up starting a private conversation through the notes system. Now, it came out through there that she was also a writer and really wanted to see if I would be interested in doing a project with her. So we started doing these little like vignettes of some of her characters, maybe some of my characters, and then it turned into something completely different, and we actually started writing books together. Now, none of these have really seen the light of day, except for the two of us, and there are some projects that don't really deserve it. The Jewel of the Desert, 2 books, I think would really make a good book for somebody to read, but we actually have to go through and edit and add in more description. But she and I, over the course of about 2 years, wrote like 5 books together, and through that she and I both really grew as writers. We both really found something that we hadn't had before, and just the fact that we were able to have sort of 2 sets of notes going at the same time, one for planning and chatting and the other one for the co-writing that we were doing, that really helped get both of our writing brains in gear and really understand what it takes to write with another person on the same project. If you want an example of published and well-known authors doing this, Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman co-wrote a book called Good Omens that is extremely good, and I highly recommend it. But for myself and Eleonora, it was a bit of a different situation. We were communicating across time zones and across an age gap. She's a little bit younger than I am, so when your writing partner is 17 and you're like 14, 15, a much bigger gap than it is now, with me being 25, almost 26, and her being in her early 20s as well. But she and I would send lines of dialogue back and forth, we would send descriptions back and forth, and we would sort of nudge each other going like, I was hoping you were going to say something like this. And just sort of both shaping the project equally. And like I said, she and I have kind of drifted apart. We do still chat, but now it's over email rather than through the DeviantArt note system. We both have very busy lives. We are both trying to do multiple things on top of our writing. She is definitely one of those people that I thank profusely for her help in developing my writing. Now the second person, and we're going in chronological order here, we're just going to call her Ams because for the moment she hasn't really told me what she wants her sort of YouTube name to be. But she and I met because we were in a Celtic literature class at San Francisco State, and we ended up being partnered on an assignment that was in class. We had to turn it in at the end of the period, where we were supposed to rewrite the ending of the story that we had just read. And I sort of took the reins and went like, look, I'm a writer, I have done co-writing projects before, this is how I've done them. And she kind of gave me this look of like, well, I'm a writer too. So that's where that snowball started, and we have been bouncing ideas back and forth for the past 3 years, and we have been developing a sort of concept for a crossover between her books and mine, and we are really looking forward to the point where we actually get to write those. But she and M. Rose, who I have also mentioned before, and also met at San Francisco State, have both really been there for me as other writers in the fantasy genre, as critics of my work that I have really, really needed. But M. Rose has really taken it the farthest. She and I met in our Business of Creative Writing class. It was a really interesting course, and we were lumped together by last names, and she was in the same discussion group as I was. And of course we're both fantasy writers, so we like had the insta-bond of that, and we have recommended books to each other, and then we kind of lost contact because last spring I graduated and she's due to graduate this spring. But late November, early December of 2015, just this past year, she sent me a message over Facebook going like, hey, I was wondering if you'd be at all interested in doing a notes exchange with me. And just generally talking about fantasy books and the genre, etc., etc. And I was really excited by this because I've been trying to get my first book of the Regal by Blood series tightened up enough to actually go up on Kindle for the past 2 years. But because nobody's been able to give me notes on it, I haven't felt comfortable putting it up. Now here, M. Rose comes in going like, I want to give you notes and I want you to give me notes too. So ever since we sort of outlined the guidelines for how we would be critiquing each other, we have been exchanging chapters, exchanging ideas, and she just got chapter 9 back to me. Nobody else has ever actually gotten past chapter 2. So she's got chapter 10 in her hot little hands right now, and I'm waiting for her to send me her next chapter, of the working title being Osius, and I have no idea if I'm actually saying that right. Sorry, but just the fact that I've had these 3 people in my life, and more specifically in my writing life, I have been able to bounce ideas off of them. I have been able to force my way past writer's block because of them. And I have had just the critique that I've needed, and I've had a broader knowledge base than I could possibly have on my own because of these 3 women. And I know for a fact that I am way too close to my own material to even try to get all the editing done for myself by myself. And they have stepped up over the years, and they have found the things that my eyes just skip over now. Like, in the chapter that Em just handed back to me, I had changed species for one of the characters between drafts. So instead of Suli, which is what she knows to be one of the characters, and is a descendant of a fire djinn, and if you have the Pathfinder bestiaries, you can probably find this creature in there, because that's where I got it. It said stone elf, and I had completely missed that. And I got a note back from her on that, going like, I thought she was a Suli, not a elf of any variety. What happened here? And of course I automatically switched it over to what it should be and went, I am smart. I am a smart human. So that is only one example of the things that other people will be able to spot in your writing that you won't. And having people around who are not only able to, but willing to do that makes a huge impact on your confidence as a writer, as your confidence as an author, and your confidence in being able to grow as a writer and still be able to actually get through all the more painful parts of writing. And one of the big things to look for when you're starting a writing group or a partnership is trust with these people. Like, with Emrose, and I'm going to keep going back to her because she's gone through the most of my book, there have been times when she is just constantly harping on one little thing that I do all the time, and I don't think she knows this until she watches this. Sorry, Em. But there have been times when I have just wanted to slam the computer shut and just rant and rave about how unfair she's being and how annoyed I am at her, until I actually close the laptop quietly so that I don't damage it and come back to her notes at another day. Because I have very emotional reactions to things, and this book is my baby. I must protect it at all costs. But I can't do that if I actually want it to be any good. So with what Em does for me is she points out all the little nitpicky, nitty-gritty little details that I have somehow managed to overlook, and she makes me actually look more closely at them and analyze them a lot better. So I get annoyed at her. I get mad at her for some of the notes that she gives me. But I go back to them a couple of days later, once I've definitely calmed down, once I'm in a more emotionally stable zen zone, and I look at them again and see, like, oh wait, she actually had a point here. And I actually go through it multiple times without getting rid of all the little comments that she puts on them. And each chapter is tighter because of it. And, you know, Emrose is definitely going to be in my acknowledgments, if not also my dedication. And I would not be the writer that I am without these people helping me to see where I need to fix things and see where I need to improve. And hopefully you'll be able to find people to do the same for you. I definitely recommend finding people who work in the same genre as you. If you can't, then at least find somebody who doesn't hate the genre that you're working in. At least find somebody who respects your genre. And if you can find more than one, fantastic. There's one little caveat there. If you're sending chapters out for notes, send it to one person at a time and sort of do a round robin with it. Like, get all of the comments onto one document. Like, maybe send it to person A, have them do the comments, and then have them send it directly to person B, have them do the comments, and on until you run out of people, and then the last person sends it back to you. So that you've got a whole mess of comments and this awful looking document, but it's all in one place. So you only have to make edits once. And with that, you can close the Writer's Toolkit. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this. I'm still trying to figure my way around things. You'll notice I finally have the lighting issue figured out. Kind of, anyway. And we'll see what series comes out next. Bye!